something does not add up. A couple who left the royal family 6 years ago, who said they wanted privacy, independence, a normal life, just completed a 4-day trip to Australia that one financial analyst claims could be worth $10 million. $10 million in 4 days. And the most interesting part is not the number itself. The most interesting part is how they made it happen, the tools they used, the titles they kept, and the question that nobody on either side of this debate has cleanly answered yet. Can you really leave the royal family and still use it as a business model? That is what we are going to explore today. Stay with me, because the answer is not as simple as either side wants you to believe. But before we get into it, if you are new here and you want breakdowns that actually go deep instead of just telling you what to feel, subscribe right now. It takes 2 seconds and it means you will not miss what comes next. Go on, I'll be here. Right, let's start with the number, because $10 million demands an explanation. The figure comes from a wealth advisor named Ted Jenkins. He broke it down publicly while the tour was still happening. His projection was this: approximately $2 million from speaking fees and paid appearances, around $3.5 million from strategic sponsorships and luxury brand partnerships, and another $4.5 million from media value and exposure. All totaled, he said, this tour could fetch $10 million or more for Harry and Meghan. Now here's where we need to be careful, and I am going to be careful, because careful is what separates channels that last from channels that get buried in corrections. Ted Jenkins' $10 million figure is a projection, a forecast, an estimate built on assumption. It is not a confirmed contract. No invoices have been published, no figures have been officially disclosed. Everything in that number is speculative until Harry and Meghan or their partners confirm otherwise, and they have not confirmed any of it. What has been confirmed is considerably more modest, and here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because the gap between what was projected and what appears to have actually happened is in many ways more revealing than the headline number itself. Harry's Inter-Edge Summit appearance in Melbourne, the one that was originally selling tickets at $2,378 a head before they were slashed by more than half, was confirmed by a spokesperson to CNN as unpaid. Harry did not receive a fee for that event. A separate source also told CNN that reports of Meghan receiving a large payday for her MasterChef Australia appearance were false. So already the $10 million projection is running into reality. Two of the most talked about commercial moments of the tour are now being described by people close to the couple as not having generated direct income. What about the retreat? Meghan's Her Best Life appearance in Sydney, where 300 women paid up to $3,200 each? Reports on her fee for that appearance have varied significantly. One figure cited was $150,000. Another put it at $250,000. The truth is somewhere in those numbers, allegedly, but neither figure has been officially confirmed by either party. And Harry's Washington speech earlier in the year, the one that preceded Australia and gives us our most concrete data point on his current speaking market value, was reported at $50,000, a significant sum for any ordinary person, and a number that represents, by some estimates, a 95% reduction from the reported $1 million fee he commanded at a JP Morgan conference in 2020, shortly after leaving the royal family. That trajectory is a story in itself, and we will come back to it, because it tells you something important about where the Sussex brand actually sits in the market right now, beneath the headlines and the projections. But here's what I want you to sit with for a moment before we go further, because this is where it gets interesting. The $10 million projection did not come from nowhere. It did not come from a tabloid with an agenda. It came from a legitimate financial analyst doing legitimate financial analysis. And the reason his number sounds plausible, even if the specifics don't fully hold up, is because of what Harry and Meghan were actually doing in Australia. Because when you look at the full picture of this tour, the commercial architecture beneath it is genuinely sophisticated. Think about what they built into 4 days. A hospital visit that generated global media coverage worth, in exposure terms, many times more than any advertising spend could buy. A war memorial appearance that connected Harry to military service and national identity. A MasterChef appearance that placed Meghan in front of Australia's primetime television audience. 12 Australian trademark filings that the As Ever lifestyle brand quietly registered in the weeks before the tour. A wellness retreat that brought in nearly $1 million in ticket revenue before Meghan set foot in the building, and a rugby match appearance, a public, photographed, warmly received moment that closed the tour on a celebratory note that reached every Australian sports fan. Each of those things individually has a commercial value. Put together, they form something that looks less like a private tour and more like what one commentator called a masterclass in brand deployment. And here's where the tension in this story really lives, because Harry and Meghan did not describe this as a brand deployment exercise. They described it as a private, business, and philanthropic visit. Those words, private, business, philanthropic, appear in almost every official communication from their office about the trip. And critics have been pointing out since before the plane even landed that those three categories are doing a significant amount of work in the same sentence. Something can be philanthropic and commercial simultaneously. Many things are. The hospital visit genuinely moved people. The war memorial moment was genuinely respectful. The Scar Tree Walk with Indigenous veterans was genuinely meaningful. None of that was fake in the sense that it produced real human moments. But the Duchess title that appeared on every event poster, every Channel 10 graphic, every organizer's press release, every ticket that was sold, that title is what made all of those commercial activities viable. And that title belongs to the institution that Harry and Meghan said they needed to leave for their mental health and freedom. One commentator asked the question that nobody in the Sussex camp has cleanly answered. If the brand that generates the income requires the title, and the title comes from the family, and the family is the institution you left, then what exactly did you leave? We will come back to that. But first, and this is the part that I think changes the shape of the whole conversation, the $10 million projection is not just a number. It is a mirror, and what it reflects depends entirely on where you are standing when you look at it. Stand on one side and you see exactly what critics have been saying for years, that Harry and Meghan left the royal family while keeping the commercial benefits of being royal. That the faux royal tour label, which every major Australian media outlet reached for independently without coordination in the same week, is not a smear. It is an accurate description. That the hospital visits and the charity work are real, but they are also strategically scheduled to provide the optics that make the commercial events palatable. That the whole operation is at its core, monetizing a title granted by a family they publicly criticized, and a lifestyle built in a country where King Charles is still head of state. Stand on the other side and you see something different. You see two people who are being destroyed by an institution that refused to protect them, who made an extraordinarily difficult decision to leave, who had children to support and a life to build, who are doing what any modern public figure does, using their profile to generate income, supporting causes they believe in, and building something that does not depend on a government check or a palace allocation. You see a black woman and a prince who broke royal protocol building their own financial independence in the most visible way possible. And you see a media environment that analyzes every dollar they earn with an intensity that would never be applied to, say, a former prime minister selling access to his contact book.
Both of those perspectives are real. Both have validity. And the reason this story refuses to resolve, the reason we are still having this conversation 6 years after Megxit, is that the truth lives somewhere in the gap between them. Now let's talk about the faux royal tour label specifically, because it matters. And it is not just a criticism from people who dislike Meghan. The Australian press, which has been broadly sympathetic to Harry and Meghan over the years, used the phrase. The Herald Sun used it. Multiple columnists used it. A CNN piece described the tour as a mix of quasi-regal public engagements and private commercial events. A writer for Mamma Mia, an Australian platform that has frequently defended the couple, described them as returning not as royals or celebrities, but as some kind of new, indestructible hybrid. What does hybrid mean in this context? It means they occupy a space that does not have a clean name yet. They are not working royals. They are not ordinary celebrities. They are not independent entrepreneurs in the way a tech founder or a musician is. They are something that has never quite existed before. Former royalty with retained titles, living in California, building a commercial operation that depends on the mystique of the institution they publicly walked away from. And Australia, in 4 days, gave us the clearest view yet of what that hybrid actually looks like in practice. The hospital where the Queen opened the doors in 1963, the war memorial where Harry laid a wreath in military tradition, the Invictus sailing event on Sydney Harbour, the MasterChef kitchen where she was introduced as royalty, the wellness retreat with the Duchess title printed on every ticket, the rugby match where they were photographed waving like the most natural, beloved public figures in the country. All of it pointing at the same thing. The titles work, the heritage works, the connection to something larger than themselves works, and it works commercially in ways that are by any financial analyst's estimate worth millions. Whether those millions total 10 or 2 or something in between, the honest answer is that nobody outside of the Sussex operation and their advisors actually knows. The contracts are private. The fees are unconfirmed. The brand partnerships, if they exist, have not been disclosed. The opaque financial architecture of this tour is, intentionally or not, one of the things that makes the conversation louder rather than quieter, because nature abhors a vacuum, and when numbers are not disclosed, other numbers rush in to fill the space. 10 million is the number that rushed in, and whether it is accurate almost does not matter anymore, because it has done its job. It has framed the conversation. It has put a dollar figure on something that Harry and Meghan would prefer to describe in the language of service, community, and connection. And here is the final thing I want to leave you with, because this is where the story goes from being about Harry and Meghan specifically to being about something bigger. We live in an era where the line between public service and commercial enterprise has become permanently blurred. Former presidents give speeches at investment banks. Former prime ministers sit on corporate boards. Athletes monetize their platforms before they have retired. Influencers build brands out of their personal lives. The idea that you can be simultaneously serving a cause and profiting from your proximity to it is not a Sussex invention. It is the defining commercial logic of the modern attention economy. What makes Harry and Meghan unusual is not that they are doing it. It is that they are doing it while insisting they are not doing it, while using the language of privacy and philanthropy to describe activities that are, at least in part, commercially motivated, while framing a 4-day commercial tour of a Commonwealth country as something fundamentally different from what it appears to be. And cameras, as the title of this video suggests, never lie. They caught the $26,000 Cartier watch at the women's shelter. They caught the 2-hour retreat appearance followed by a smiling evening at the rugby. They caught the Duchess of Sussex on MasterChef the same morning she said, "Call me Meg." They caught the half-empty Melbourne summit that had slashed its ticket prices. They caught the itinerary that showed Meghan's departure from the wellness retreat was scheduled in advance. None of that proves bad intent. None of it confirms the $10 million figure. None of it is a verdict on who Harry and Meghan are as people. But together, what cameras caught in 4 days in Australia is a picture of what it actually looks like to try to have it both ways. To be private and public, charitable and commercial, royal and independent, human and brand. Whether 10 million changed hands or 2 or something in between is almost secondary. The real question the cameras were asking, the question they are always asking, is simpler and harder than any dollar figure. Are you what you say you are? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you land. And if you want to keep going down this story, the aftermath, the palace reaction, what comes next for Brand Sussex, subscribe and come back, because the next chapter has already started. See you there.